people. What's his name? Mike. Okay. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, Jacob, how are you?
Good. I've got a fella here with me, a friend, Chris Pickard. He's here to record a backup to make sure if something goes wrong, we have a backup on hand.
Okay.
So you can say hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris, how are you? Just a second, I'm going to turn this. I got a light above my head here. I'm going to turn off.
All right, perfect.
Might make me a bit too dark. I'm not sure. Yeah, it does. The lighting in here sucks. What's going on? Lighting here sucks. Well, that's the best I can do right now.
That's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect. We're more interested in what's in your mind than in your visuals.
Okay.
So I just want to say I definitely appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. I know everyone wants to speak to you all the time.
Pretty well. That's all right. It took a while for us to get together, but we finally made it.
Yeah. So more or less, just so you know where all these questions are coming from and whatnot, I've asked a little over 100 people questions that they wanted to ask to you, and I compiled the questions that had the most things asked. And there's 6 ones that had a lot of questions, and there was a following 3 that if we have time for you feel you want to answer, there'll be those following 3 that would bring it to 10. I know that's a lot, so if you can't get there, I understand. So the other thing is too, the people that I'd ask questions to are disproportionately from the north side, so that will obviously show in one of the questions where it's relevant to just the north side. Some of the questions I've got forever, but I don't know how long you've got.
Well, I thought we were going to be around 10 minutes, so I don't know how many minute questions you can get in, but let's start.
Originally when I asked you, it said around 5 questions. So
okay, yeah.
So I don't know if you remember that. So it's up to you. Yeah. Some of the questions aren't direct questions either, so I just hope you will try to answer the core of what's wanted. So I guess we'll get into this. The first kind of thing is people kind of want to know what a mayor is and what a mayor really does and is responsible for, because it's not exactly clear to most people what that is.
Yeah, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions, right? Because if you go into party politics, if you go to the provincial government or the federal government, the premier and the prime minister have a lot of authority, a lot of power. The mayor really has zero authority, really. I mean, I chair the meetings. I bring information to council. I follow up on council's decisions and regulations. I work with staff. I work with other levels of government to try to make things happen. But when it comes to council, all decisions of city council are made by the 12 councillors. The mayor doesn't vote unless there's a case of a tie. So in my 5 years as mayor, I've only voted one time to break a tie. So when council issues come to council, they're debated, and council makes a decision. And then when council makes their decision by majority rules, there's 12 councillors, so 7 votes means it passes, and then I own it. Then it's up to me to try to make sure that whatever they decided gets done, whether it's to direct staff to do something, to follow up, or to get me to follow up on their behalf, or lots of times it's just to award a contract or a tender. Well, that's okay. Then it goes. I eventually sign the contracts, because if you notice, just about every motion the council passes, at the very end it says, and we authorize the mayor to sign the necessary legal documents, right? So that gives me the authority to sign and bind the city. When it comes to then when council makes a decision, then it's up to me to go to the media and the public and explain it to the public, to the media, what the city is doing. So that's my authority to go ahead and do it. So I own the issue from there on, but I'm not involved in decision making unless it's a case of a tie. My job is to make sure that government is run smoothly, that the information the council needs is provided to help them make the decision, that when council's decision is made, as I said, that it gets enacted, that staff follow up on it. And, I follow up with our chief administrative officer a few days after council meetings to make sure that, that everybody's clear on what the decisions were and what's the next step. All right, council decided this. How are we going to go about it? Tick, 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 tack, toe. Let's get moving on it, right? So that's my job. And I'd say that's a third of my job is my job pre-COVID, because COVID has, stopped a lot of public events, but my job is about 70 hours a week. And a third of that is at City Hall with City Council and, working with staff to enact things that council's decided or get information to council. Another third of my job is working with other levels of government and the business community and citizens to carry forward with information and get information and make things happen. And the other third of my job is the public relations part, attending conferences and special events and multicultural events and representing the city whenever they require the mayor to be there to wave the flag, to sell the city. So about a third of it is public relations, a third is with other levels of government, and a third is with, say, City Hall administration stuff.
All right. I appreciate all the information. Yeah, it's quite informative. I really like it. We'll move on to the next one so we can try to power through these.
What I just want to clarify, though, is you will sometimes hear candidates say that if you elect me, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Well, the mayor has no authority to do anything without council approving it. So it's one thing for a candidate to say, you elect me, I'm going to do this. No, what you should say is, if you elect me, I'm going to try to work with council to see if council will do this, right? So there's a fine line. So people don't understand that.
No, I appreciate that. That's kind of, why I guess a lot of people are wondering that. So the next kind of question that most people had, or really that first one wasn't a question anyone had, it's more that my interpretation, I realized people didn't understand. But the first real question that the majority of people had, which had almost 30 people state as one of the things they wanted, asked, is about sidewalks. Particularly all year round, but in general, discussing winter where it's icy, wet. They believe it's been a safety concern and has prevented them even from using the sidewalks altogether. And they're wondering, there's no direct question to that, but they're looking for some kind of a solution or statement that will help maybe make them feel safer.
Well, that's a tricky one. First of all, we have I forget how many hundreds of kilometers of sidewalks we have in the city. And we do live in, let's face it, we live in Eastern Canada in a winter climate, right? So we get cold weather, we get wet weather, we get snow, we get rain, we get damp weather. And lots of times, you get the snowbanks on either side of the sidewalks. And even on a cold day, if it's real sunny, the water will melt and run down onto the sidewalk. So we can clear it, and we do. We have a policy in the city that within 48 hours after a storm, we'll have all sidewalks cleared. Lots of times we do it within 10 or 12 hours, but by policy we do it within 48, and we do that. But it's it's almost impossible to say that you can take it right down to the concrete, right? We have an extra program.
I guess what most people
core that we keep clear, right?
I guess what a lot of people have stated too, in general, to that is about like salting, sanding, and unnecessary buildup of water.
Yeah, well, that's as I say, it's tricky. We do sand, we do salt. Salt only works to a certain temperature. Once it's below a certain temperature, salt won't melt anything. We do sand and salt, but we do. We have asked staff for the budget for next winter to look at increasing the level of service we provide to sidewalks. So as I started to say, in our downtown core about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, we spent an additional, I forget, a lot of money to make the sidewalks on Queen, King, and Brunswick Street in our downtown core clearer. Strip them down to the concrete if we can. And there was a noticeable difference, but it comes at quite a cost. So we're asking staff to come up with a program to try to extend that program further. We'll never be able to do it across the whole city, but maybe we can start to extend it to some of the major corridors, Smythe, Regent, Maine, Fulton, those kind of things. So it's very difficult, but we're going to try.
The last thing I'll say before we move on, you're welcome to respond if you want or not, but several of the people have said that it's been they feel it's been over a week before their sidewalk would be sanded. And they think maybe that is pushing it a little bit. I don't know if you want to respond.
Yeah, that would be pushing it. I'd challenge if it was a week, but maybe look, I won't deny that somebody might have seen that sometime, because normally if it has to be sanded or salted, we'll get at it quite rapidly. Having said that, I couldn't argue that maybe a sidewalk here or there didn't get done. We have 14 different routes, I think, of sidewalk plows around the city that do the. So if we had a new person on a route that may have forgot to do it, a week would be not acceptable. But what you might see is that it gets sanded or salted, and then, as I mentioned, the water melts off the banks, runs down and freezes again right over top of it. So that happens quite frequently. So we could sand or salt, and then 4 or 5 hours later, it's icy again. So that's the challenge we're up against.
All right, sure. So we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is in regards to flooding. People feel like flooding is becoming more serious an issue. Obviously, more frequent big floodings, and the floodings in general are becoming larger. Many people feel that other regions of both Canada and the world have done better to accommodate the flooding areas and due to different methods, such as buying flood land from people at a reasonable price, or building special water controlling things around the flooded zones. And they're wondering, I guess, maybe they're not seeing the work that's done or knowing the work that's done, but they're wondering what's been done, what can be done. And one guy in particular had said that their community would be interested in potentially even raising money for a project to help that get along if they understood like a physical goal.
Yeah. Okay. Thank goodness we didn't have the last 2 years we didn't get a flood, right? Mother Nature always wins. But we have been at this for 20 years with, as we call, mitigation. So what we've started at like the big storm water lines throughout the city that carry the stormwater away during the big rainstorms and stuff. We've upgraded those to the 100-year flood level design plus 25%. So we're ahead of most cities in Eastern Canada in taking water away from after a big rainstorm. And all the things we've done, we've raised 2 or 3 roads in the city, at Wilsey Road and Lincoln Road. We raised the road at the underpass down by Pickeroons. We raised those so they don't get flooded as easily. We've raised all our well systems and our septic system so that the water and sewer still operates during floods. Other cities may not do that. But what we've started this year, we're about to begin a big project on Gibson Street, or on Gibson Street, on Union Street from Gibson to the underpass. You see all the markers over there right now. Not only do we have to dig up the water and sewer and put new lines in there, we're going to put berms along the side of the road towards the river to stop the water from running down towards the underpass. So that's, and then we'll landscape it. We're going to do that. We're going to do that in other neighborhoods over the next 3 or 4 years to stop the water from coming in. And what we've also done is a lot of stormwater lines that drain water down to the river, that when the river rises to a certain level, it'll backflow up and get into communities. We put backflow valves in all of those to stop the water from coming up. So there are some places we probably maybe never be able to protect, which are, if the river rises to the levels like it did back in 2018. Some of the spots down in Barker's Point, they're so low, it's very hard to protect that. But other levels of the city, down in the Burpee Street area, down in the University Avenue area that floods quite a bit, down in part of the Devon area, we're going to be able to protect those a lot better over the next few years. So we are working on it.
I guess some people were saying, about then offering those people that have those properties reasonable buyouts for their property so that they could escape that situation without being trapped there and then also losing or sustaining so much damage.
Yeah, that is something that's been discussed before. I don't know if to tell you the truth, I don't know if that would be strictly a municipal thing or something with the provincial government as well. I know in Perth Andover, when they had a bunch of floods there 15 years ago, the province relocated and bought a lot of homes along the river in Perth Andover and relocated people. So it was a provincial government did that. And I don't know if it'd be provincial or not, but that's been discussed. So that's something worth looking at, because I can't commit to who would do it, but I know there's some areas that, will flood regularly if the river gets to a certain level. So it is worth looking at.
Perfect. Sorry, I'll move on to the next one now. So this one is pretty much strictly about Northsiders. So many Northsiders in Fredericton have expressed that they feel development for the north side has been neglected in favor of the south side and other regions of the city, especially in the areas of like businesses and other economic developments like shopping centers and the such forth.
Well,
not, like I said, not another really question to that, just more of a statement.
I was raised in Fulton Heights, lived in Broad Street for 30 years. I'm on the south side the last 2 years, but I'm a north side boy. So nothing's been neglected. As you notice what's happening down along Two Nations Crossing and down to Main Street and Union Street now, the development that's happening, that's natural because the businesses want to set up where the people are working, right, to support the businesses. So businesses naturally wanted to set up in their downtown core. And then when the malls got built in the 70s up the top of the hill, other businesses wanted to locate around them. That's private sector. We can't control that. But now that a lot of that space is filling up, you're seeing a lot of more things happening along the Main Street Union corridor, and we're very excited about that. You're going to see a lot more out the Brookside Drive over the next few years. 2 more schools are going to be built in Fredericton North within the next few years. The province is making an announcement. Well, they already announced that they're going to start building a new school in Fredericton North somewhere next year. We just don't know the exact location. But when all that's going to happen, the Fredericton North is going to continue to grow and expand. And as more people live there, and we already have the streets mapped out where people are going, and the schools built, to be more businesses come around it. It's just a natural progression. We were a city of 45,000 people for a long time. Now we're up to 65,000. So with growth comes all this opportunity. So it's nothing was neglected. It was just that's where the people worked, was on the south side, and more people are now working on the north side. You're going to see a lot more businesses follow. So buckle up, because over the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of development on the north side.
Okay, let's hope. So the next one is going to be about the housing in Fredericton. This was definitely it's definitely something I personally feel too is an issue. It's about we are getting so many people moving here from Ontario, Quebec, the West, that homes and apartments alike, their costs have become unmanageable for a lot of New Brunswickers, and people that were able to get a mortgage and were working their way to get there. It's no longer something they can do. And in fact, some people are facing, one guy in particular, which I can even vouch for. I know them very personally, about the rent is going to go up almost $700 a month, which is an uncontrollable amount. Now, I know, and everyone here has expressed that they understand that housing is technically a provincial matter, but when something hurts so many of your people, when does it transfer from province to city? Like, when can you just neglect it?
Yeah, that's a very serious issue. First of all, things like rent control, we don't have the authority in the municipality to do it at all. Legislatively, we have no power to do it. That is a provincial mandate. And I know they just completed a big rent review. The province announced their results there a week or so ago. And I know the premier said he wasn't that enthralled with rent control. But another thing is the double taxation, which is apartment complexes have to pay double tax. They pay municipal tax and provincial tax, and we're the only province in Canada that makes that happen. And of course, that the landlord passes that on to the tenants. This is for rents. And I know the province has said that they're committed to trying to reduce that double tax and find a way that the savings can be passed on to the tenants. But it has to be something that's done gradually over like a 10-year period. So you're not going to see any big change immediately. What we need more apartments in the city. We need developers to build more, because the vacancy rate right now is about 1%, which is completely in the landlord's favor. A healthy market is about a 5% vacancy rate, where there's enough apartments available that the landlords have to be a bit more judicious about the rents they charge. And so we need more apartments built, so that people will, even if they're more high-end ones, people will move into them and vacate other apartments that make them available for other people. So we have to do that. We have to find out we've got a review doing in the city right now, a housing needs assessment to see where our real gaps are, to see if we can try to put new policies in place that will allow landlords to build, developers to build maybe higher density, smaller apartments instead of, because they have to make money, right? People understand when a developer builds a building or builds a house for somebody, they got to borrow money as well, and they got to make a profit. So they either build fewer big apartments at a high rent or a lot more smaller apartments at a lesser rent, but they still got to make a profit at the end of the day. So we don't say they can't do that, but we're trying to find some policies that will allow them to consider building by right instead of going through a bunch of hoops, higher density, smaller apartments.
The issue is that people that were looking to buy a house, because as I'm sure you know, at least in New Brunswick, it is cheaper to own your own house in a lot of ways than it is to rent. For instance, I live in the same zone as a friend of mine. We pay virtually the same for housing costs, except I own, he rents, and he has a smaller place.
Yeah.
And that it's because of all this purchasing from others and the growth New Brunswick is facing, it's causing New Brunswickers to be unable to succeed now. It's holding them back. And then those that are in apartments are now facing homelessness. Yeah,
it's a big challenge, Jacob. It sure is. And the harsh reality is the municipalities don't have a lot of levers to deal with that. This is a lovely city. People want to live here. We're growing by about 1,400 people a year over the last 3 or 4 years. That's envisioned to continue. So the pressure is going to continue to be there for people to buy up homes and to live here and build more apartments and rent them out. So until we can find a way that maybe through rent controls, if that's the right way to go, we need the provincial government to help on the controls end, and we have to find ways to entice developers to build some less expensive. Another one is there's a term called inclusionary zoning. People call me all the time. Somebody's going to build a new apartment building. Why don't you mandate that they have a certain amount of those as affordable or social housing? We're not allowed to do that by provincial legislation. Or they're going to put up a new subdivision and build 100 homes. Why don't you mandate that 5% of those have to be entry-level housing, that you could buy for $180,000. I'm just making a number up. We're not allowed by legislation to do that. So if we had that tool, we've been asking the province for that legislation for years. They haven't given it to us yet. But I think conversations we've had in the last year with provincial officials, it looks like they're prepared to consider changing that legislation, that maybe in the next year or so, we'll have the authority to do that. We have to be careful, though, because for every one that they build at a lower cost, somebody else has to pay a higher cost, because they still have to make, at the end of the day, the developer has to make this much money to pay his bills as well. So it's a real challenge for a growing city. Very, very challenging.
All right. So the next question is about recycling. People have expressed a desire that they want to recycle more and contribute more, but it's not feasible for them on their level alone to do it. So they're looking for things such as glass and compost, some way for the city to be involved, helping them do this, as well as recently quite a bit of people have been hearing that the current recyclable goods have not been being recycled and are currently just being thrown in with the waste, with the rest of the garbage.
Well, I can't comment on that one. The regional landfill is is run by all the different communities around here. We don't own the landfill; we just contribute to it, right? And they have to have a market for it. And right now, the market for recycled glass is almost non-existent. So it's one thing to say recycled glass, but you take it to the landfill and they can't get rid of it. What are they going to do with it, right? There has to be a market for it, and the market's really dried up. And but they have to find that. As far as composting. Our landfill right now has a best-in-class system. And what they do is, we don't collect compost, but anything that's of a compostable material goes into the landfill, and as it breaks down, the landfill has a methane gas extraction system. As it breaks down, it turns into a gas. They collect the gas and they drive it through a motor, and instead of burning it, and they generate enough power through collecting the gas to power about 2,000 homes. They put it right back into the grid. Same as taking 15,000 cars off the road. So to set up a separate recycling to get composting, we would have to have a fleet of vehicles to go pick up the compost from homes or apartment buildings, which is going to drive up greenhouse gas costs. And then we have to go to the landfill, and the landfill has to build another facility for about $15 million to deal with it. Whereas right now, even though it theoretically it's hard to conceive, the compostables go into the landfill, is collected, and we get green power out of it to power 2,000 homes. So we're already doing a great job on compostables, although it's hard to comprehend that when you're not picking it up at the house. But to do it would be more disadvantageous to the environment than the system we're doing right now.
Oh, okay. So I guess to kind of follow up a little bit on what you said, the two statements to add is one, if someone has expressed an idea where compost containers that would have instructions on for people that wouldn't know how to compost would be available for them to rather have for free or purchase at a reasonable rate, so that it could be more accessible for people to try to compost. In regards to the glass and really any service in general the city offers, we recognize that a lot of services do come at a loss to the people, and it's people funded. But at what point do we start to care regardless?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. That's the social contract you have to have. And at some point in time, you might have to raise taxes as well to pay for this, right? And that's not a threat, that's just a reality. If it's that important to people, we may have to consider that. But the information about, more information about composting and that, yes, I've been trying to talk to landlords about having compost facilities at their spot for their tenants as a selling point to get people to go and go to their apartment building and set up recycling at their apartments. And some are trying to move in that direction. As far as backyard composting, if you own a house, at one point the city used to buy bulk the black backyard compost things, and then we sell it just at our cost. And we'd buy 200 or 300, and then just have a Saturday where you'd come up. If it cost the city $20, we'd charge you $20, right? And they get out of that for some reason. I don't know why, but it's a good point. We should start that again and allow just buy in bulk and let people do it in their own, in their own facility. So nothing's better than doing it in your backyard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do want to do it. I just feel like people want to have helped a way to do it. Like it seems overwhelming for a lot of people to try to strike out on their own to do it, right? Yeah. As well as I'm glad you mentioned the apartment thing, because I almost forgot about that. That was something that was mentioned to me, that a lot of the people I speak to live in apartments, and a lot of things they say is that basically they can't recycle because of the way the apartment is run. Yeah. So they're forced to throw it out.
Yeah, we're trying to work with apartment buildings. We would like to pick up recycling at apartments sometime. It's again, it comes at a big cost to be able to go around and pick up at the different. We don't pick up recycling at businesses either around the city. They look after their own, but we have to get new apartments built so that they have a facility that the recycling trucks can get into easily, and because we can't have 30 green containers out by the side of the street, you'd never get around to it. So we're trying to work with landlords to set that up. Our goal is to get to that. We're not there yet. We have to figure out how we're going to handle the cost and how we can work with the different apartment buildings to set up the facilities so they work.
Okay, the sixth question to move on to. So many people have been expecting Fredericton to step up and be a leader in the growing homeless issue, and people actually felt proud and expected the city to do more than they did, and now are starting to have expressed that they feel ashamed of the growing issue, and are what's happening isn't what they've expected. And they're looking for some kind of response about why this is happening and how it can be changed, because the people are passionate about trying to help these homeless people, as well as some people have become very concerned about the not in my backyard movement happening in general with the Phoenix Center and other such centers. I'm a little unfamiliar with that. I do know a little bit, but I'm assuming you may know more about that.
Yeah, it's a big It's a big challenge and a big issue and something that's close to my heart. I've been working the housing homelessness file for 15 years as a councillor and as mayor. I started the city's affordable housing committee to try to originally work with developers to build more social housing. And then the first act I did when I was elected mayor 5 years ago was to start the mayor's task force on homelessness to try to find a way that the city could engage with the province to help facilitate this kind of stuff. And out of that came a movement, a community-driven effort that came out of my mayor's task force to try to build 40 micro homes around the city for people out of the shelters. 4 were built, 7 are in the works, that's 11. And the rest of the money that was raised to try to build the other, say, 25, 30 units is now going up to the city motel project to convert apartments into homes for people out of the shelter. So there's going to be 40 of those around the city. So that's a big movement. The reality is municipalities in New Brunswick have no responsibility legislatively or tax-wise for social issues. We don't look after health. We don't look after education. We don't look after social services. But in recent years, the problem, people on the streets and people with mental health, lots of the people that are homeless is really, they're homeless, but it's driven by mental health and addictions. And that the expertise for that lies with the province and the people that they fund. There's nobody who works for the city has any expertise. But in recent years, people have been turning to the city to try to solve the problems when we have no experience in it. So we're trying to find ways to move into that file to work with partners in a responsible way, because people want to fix, so do I, but we've had no tools to do it. So when people say we haven't done anything, this council, this city has been, well, we were a leader in New Brunswick for years on what we were doing with policy, donating free land for micro homes, creating task force. I chaired the community action group on homelessness personally. But now when it comes to the drugs and drug addictions and mental health issues that are driving the issues, we're trying to find our way forward as well. So we're really working hard to try to develop the capabilities and the partnerships to try to move forward on this. So the people should take faith in the fact that we take this extremely seriously. We just had no experience on how to do it.
Yeah, and I guess I'd like to kind of make a point of some of the things you said.
Yeah.
First of all, I based on what you've said, that sounds like where you're saying there was a lot of initiative before in the past, and you led some stuff. I think that's probably where a lot of people said they had gotten their pride from and felt that Fredericton was leader in it, but now they feel like you're not actually so much helping, but is actually working against the issue in a lot of ways. Not you in particular, but the city, right?
No, I don't take it personal.
And as well as I get what you're saying. You've said it before about some of the other issues, how like it's not really a city issue, but a lot of people feel, and me personally too, about this, as issues become so bad that it doesn't matter who's supposed to be dealing with it. Everyone's responsible. Just like if you could help someone that got hurt near you, you're going to go see if you can help them. You're not going to leave them to their fate, right?
Yeah. No, that's a good point, Jacob. And that's what I was trying to say at the end. We're trying to find our way forward on this. I'm still very passionate about it. The city motel project, when the federal government backed out and didn't support that, out of the blue, the group that was organizing that came to the city and said, well, we need $1.4 million from you to do this, when it was supposed to be a federal project. So originally, the council turned that down. As I told you before, council votes on things, but I knew it was important enough that I found a way forward. 4 days later, I called an emergency meeting and it negotiated some new terms and conditions that the council was agreeable to, and we agreed to do that. So we did give the $900,000 to the city motel project 4 days later, based on some negotiations that I personally took on and council was supportive of. That project as well, we're giving $100,000 a year every year that project's opens in support money year after year after year. So we've been very supportive, but the issue is so strong right now that if it's not solved, let's put it this way. The provincial government, who technically in the provincial and federal government technically have the responsibility, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal, and they haven't been able to solve it. It's pretty hard for people to expect a municipality who's never had to deal with this until say the last couple of years to the level of that where the community wants us to be able to solve it when hundreds of millions of dollars. So we're finding our way forward. We're taking we're making progress, and I think you'll see some good actions over the next little while as we find out how to do this better.
I think that's what people want to hear. Like, I feel like it hasn't been transparent that you've been trying to work through those bumps, right? Like, I feel like they only see what they see, right? So no one's like coming out to explain this. So and
yeah,
hopefully
that's the challenge, Jacob. It's you know, if you know, as an elected official, I have to be more pragmatic too, because we have to balance. This is not an excuse, but we have to balance 50 things where if you're passionate about one particular thing, you want that solved. You want it solved tomorrow. And we just can't do that. And if you just can't jump on something and solve it right immediately, people have a thought that you're not taking it serious. We're taking it very serious.
I think this comes up, it comes kind of back to about what people are saying about the flood issue, and somewhat with another question, if we have time to get to discuss, where people just feel like they understand what's going on, and they just don't understand where you're going in the future. Like it's not exactly like it's not posted anywhere, right? And not that it would be like a post anywhere, you know what I mean? But it's not like someone can go and ask somebody or go and figure it out. Like,
yeah,
to them, they see it's happening or it's not happening, and they want to know what's planned to be happening.
Yeah. So I got time for one more question, but on that one, Jacob, on the social issues, you're just going to have to follow along as we develop our partnerships with different groups. On the flood mitigation, go onto the city's website and look under climate change initiatives, and we have our detailed plans on there, what we're going to do this year, the next few years, and in the next 5 and 10 years. So people can go on and check that out.
Okay. Well, I have 3 questions. I'll ask them, all 3 of them, and you can decide which one you want to answer. That way it's in your ball court since you don't have the time. So the first one is in regards to busing. People are interested in the cost of running the bus versus what's made. Also in regards to, is different sized buses would make things cheaper, and is running on a Sunday possible, and in regards to the cut to the bus drivers' hours that have happened because of COVID. The second question is in regard to how people can be more involved in the city politics. They feel very left out. They don't understand what's going on. They feel like when they try, they're not given answers, or there's nowhere to easily find it. And in general, like even for voting for people, there's no way to, it's not like doing provincial elections or doing federal elections, right? You just can't learn things like you could on those levels. Now, the third thing is about services. People are looking to see what services the city potentially can do to help the everyday people, in regards to, like, is it possible to start a work program for the poor to help them work if they want to work at a lower cost, or such as providing internet service to a greater area. Those are the 3 remaining questions.
Okay. Well, when it comes to engaging with the city and learning what more, we started, it's very difficult. You know, the old traditional way of having the public meetings, nobody shows up at those, right? I've had a lot of, when I was a ward councillor for Ward 3, Fulton Heights, North Devon, I would have ward meetings and 10 people would show up, you know, so nobody does that anymore. And trying to engage with them. So we started a new platform. It's called Engage Fredericton. Again, you go on the city's website, look under Engage Fredericton. We have a new complete platform where we're putting out all our information on this, new projects we're putting out in advance, telling people what our vision is, asking people to provide feedback. There's surveys, there's questions and answers. You can ask questions of our staff about city services. They will respond. So check that out. So that's a new, and we're going to continue to invest in that so that we can have a continual back and forth dialogue with our citizens about what's going on in the city, what's important to them, how we operate. So that's one, Engage Fredericton. When it comes to buses, the buses are subsidized by the taxpayers. Well, everything's subsidized by taxpayers, but revenue in the bus system only accounts for about 40% of the cost. The rest of it's all, you know, there's not a transit system in I think in North America that makes money. but it's an essential service, so we need it. It's very
Yeah,
easy to
like we've said before about how we recognize some services cost us money, and that
it costs us money, right? We have to have it. But it's very easy to drive a car here if you have a car, and it's not that expensive to park if you have a car. So there's not a lot of incentive to ride the bus. And bus has to have ridership and density to get better. So what we need is, as we get denser and have more of, more living along certain corridors, our ridership is going to continue to go up, and that'll help us fund services to the rest of the community.
well, rush hour. Oh, sorry. And another thing that just messaged me is someone was wondering about rush hours, if the additional half-hour runs will be added to those rush hours as well.
Yeah, well, that's what we want to increase our frequency, but again, that comes at a very significant cost. But that's part of our plan. We want to have a north side hub so that not everything has to funnel through King's Place. We need a north side hub. We're going to try Uber. We're going to try on-demand service somewhere in Fredericton this year, like an Uber service, where instead of the bus just doing a fixed run, Silverwood might be a good example for that, because Silverwood has a main corridor, but all the houses are far from it, and there's no way to work a good fixed route. But other communities across Canada are trying it. North America has been very successful. You have an app, you dial up a smaller bus, it drives you, comes to get you, drops you off, and maybe takes you to a mainline corridor. So we're going to try that. Sunday service, we have to negotiate with our unions on that. That's a very expensive service. It's in our plan, but it's probably still about 4 to 5 years away before we get to trial Sunday service.
Can you give me a time frame on the north side hub? Like I said, a lot of the people that ask questions were from the north side, so they'd be interested in that.
Yeah, well, again, I can't remember the exact details, but again, if you go on to their city website and look under the transit master plan, and we adopted after a big survey, we surveyed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of users and riders all across the city, user groups. And we had experts. We put a transit master plan together. We adopted it about a year ago. It's got all our timelines mapped out on that. So transit master plan city website, it'll give you the whole timeline of all the initiatives we want to try and the years we want to try it in. So try that out. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I guess I appreciate that you've answered all my questions, but there is only one left I wanted. I would appreciate if you spend the extra couple of minutes to answer that third one about potential services Fredericton offer to help people in general. It's cheap job placements or better internet access or other services in general, extending the water.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean. A lot of those things are programs that are funded by the provincial and federal governments through different nonprofits and NGOs, like that offer certain programs to get people work experience and all that. Those are all provincially and federally funded initiatives. The city, I don't know of any city in New Brunswick that offers any such program. Maybe that doesn't mean we couldn't down the road, but all those type of things you're talking about.
I feel like that's in response to the homeless issue. I think that's people just wondering if there's something else we can extend on that kind of level. This one's just more on all of people that asked a lot of service related questions about Fredericton. So it's
okay.
Like, if to give you a better focus how to answer, if you have any potential ideas or if the city has plans to add some kind of more services to the people to help them with those.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. Those are things we're working through, right? I mean, I can't commit to any of that because it's traditionally something that municipalities don't do. So to do that is something completely new. So we have to figure this out policy-wise and cost-wise, and we don't want to duplicate something that other levels of government are doing or other groups in the community they're doing with money that they get from the federal and provincial governments. But those are questions that you could ask, again, through our Engage Fredericton site. There's places on there where people can pose those questions, and that'll get our professional staff working on the answers as well. And if they'll probably come to my office and say, hey, Mayor, we got these questions. I say, okay, I was trying to answer some of them as well. But together we might be able to formulate a better response to that.
Okay. I really appreciate your time, and I hope I wasn't too much of a burden for you.
No, not at all, Jacob. It took a while for us to connect, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and through you to some people in the community.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye.